Mike, welcome to the Leaders Lab.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, good to see you, Mike. We got to meet the other day, and thanks for jumping on the podcast so quick. I wanted to learn more about you and your story, and so I was just starting to do that in our one-on-one the other day. But maybe if you could, what we didn't get to is your background. So tell me a little bit about what your career has looked like up until now. I know you're based in San Diego, and we talked a little bit about that, but yeah, maybe walk me through that if you could.
Sure, no problem. I guess I could say I was born an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I have had a dozen or so businesses. When I graduated college, I was a geologist for a very short period of time and realized that I do better working for myself and teams that we create. So most of the business activity that I've done has been around creating technology and marketing companies and software applications. Recently, we've delved into a variety of other businesses where we're selling online. So I've touched a lot of different businesses, done a lot of different things, but my passion is around taking technology, in this case, artificial intelligence, and bring it to the next level in personal development space.
Are you the guy that comes up with the idea and then you hire engineers, or have you also been the guy that sort of gets in there and builds the tool? Like, are you a little of both, or more on the ideas of it?
I couldn't really program Hello World if I had to with
Right.
the bullet to my gun, yeah, the gun to my head. So typically I've assembled teams based on the projects, but lately, a lot of the business ventures I've done, I've become co-founders with other successful entrepreneurs, and I've really enjoyed that a lot. It's kind of lonely up there on top as an entrepreneur sometimes, whether it's going well or not. So I enjoy having the company of other entrepreneurs as well alongside of me.
Yeah, I think just the collective energy as well as the bandwidth and life experiences you get are huge. So tell me how did this current app, Habit Driven, how did you come up with this idea? Where did this concept come from? Because as we started talking about it the other day, it was like, oh, I get where you're coming from, but our audience hasn't heard that yet.
Yeah, so it really stemmed from November 2 years ago when ChatGPT hit the market. So I was kind of in the downtime of the holiday season, and I decided to upload a spreadsheet that I had put together, a pretty complicated spreadsheet, which I had used to track my habits. I'm a huge fan of tracking habits and personal development and just, overall increasing productivity by just becoming better a little bit each day. And so I literally copied and pasted a Google Sheet set of data and put it into Chat GPT. And at that time, I wasn't a prompt engineer by any means, but I was able to ask it some sophisticated questions, and it was able to return back to me a set of data that I wouldn't have been able to intuitively get the results, the insights that came from it. So from that point on, I really started doing research into habit tracking apps, personal development apps, journaling apps, things like that on the market. And I couldn't find all the solutions I found were either way too simple, way too complex, or just kind of defunct, like old technology, none of which had used AI at that time. So it was relatively quickly after that that I began doing serious market research. And I would say March of last year is when we started actually coding habit driven.
So I'm curious on that first output that ChatGPT gave you from the information that you gave it. Do you remember, like, what did you ask it and what did it spit back? Did you say, like, analyze the first 5 rows of this table and tell me what your thoughts are? Or like, what was the prompt and what was the return?
Yeah, great question. So what I've learned over time in general, I don't remember the exact prompt, but what I've learned over time is the more you constrain the request, the more general you are with the prompt, the more wide of an answer you get,
Yes.
obviously. And so it was a pretty wide question in the sense that I have this habit that I just nickname internally, so to speak, as morning with Mike. And this is my exercise. And sometimes it's a big long hike, and sometimes it's a short hike, and sometimes it's resistance training, whatever it may be. And I asked it like because I would always take kind of meticulous notes on how I felt after I was done doing those activities. And what I was able to get, I don't remember the exact prompt, but what I was able to get was the correlation between the things that I'd done the day before, the things that I'd eaten, because I recorded all of those as well. And so it did put together a pretty good. Now, granted, this was Chat GPT version one, whatever,
Sure.
I don't remember the number at that time. It came back with something that was meaningful and significant to the point where I was then able to query further and like really get my prompting down. But it was the idea of correlating my exercise routine with the things that I'd done the day prior or even the morning of if it was in the afternoon. What I learned is I'm a morning exercise person for
Right.
sure.
So did you know? So at that point, what it did was sort of validated where your brain was already going, which was, hey, maybe this could, assist you with a personal problem you were having that then might be a solution for other people, right? As far as, so where does it go from there? You decided to create the app a few months later. And then with the idea the whole time, I'm assuming that AI is going to be, you're going to put inputs in and then AI is going to be the connector of your various activities. Is that kind of how you went about it?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest, when I first started, this is one of the first companies that I've ever started where I didn't necessarily create a spreadsheet and try to figure out how much revenue it was going to generate or anything. It was kind of a pet project initially, something I wanted to do in order to give back. And in my mind, the worst case scenario is I would have a kick-ass habit tracking app that would be personally, better than anything else I could find. The reality is, as I dug into it, I decided that I want to take a direction in my life where I could give back in the personal development space and help others. So now it became like a lifestyle. And I started evangelizing the concept. I started going to all kinds of different networking events for personal development, all kinds of seminars, and whatever I could get my hands on, and just getting people's feedback on what they would do. And so at that point, I decided that this is a real business opportunity. There's a big market out there, and this could really change people's lives. And then I started taking it seriously. Then the spreadsheets started coming and PowerPoint presentations and kind of to where we're at now. But it organically grew from a project where I thought maybe this would require a $50,000 budget to now we're several hundreds of thousands of dollars invested into it. And like we assume that we'll be having much more investment of time and energy into it because the return should be significant.
Yeah, I think the possibilities are about as great as your mind can take you, right? You and I started going there the other day because other than there are some decent apps out there that if you put what you need to put in there will track your fitness and food together, right? Like where you can kind of combine that. But then you've got all these other things. You've got the Apple Health app. I've got an Aura ring on right now. Um, Even as we're talking, I'm thinking about, could it be integrated even with your Google Calendar in the way that says, like, look, when your fitness is good, you actually work longer and take more meetings, right? When your diet's good, your fitness is, I mean, almost like as much data as you really wanted from all these different sources. And when you could look at like trending lines to go, oh, when exercise is happening, diet is happening, sleep is happening, productivity goes up in a meaningful way, not maybe that day, but in the days that follow, right? Is that the intention of where this is going to evolve to?
Yeah, absolutely. It's never been our interest to recreate those types of tracking mechanism that you mentioned. I often use companies like Calorie King to count calories. They're very sophisticated platforms that have been developed over years and years, and the way that they track things is very specific. And you could do that the same with Apple Health and Fitbit and all of the others. And so our objective is to gather that data, combine it alongside with journaling data and actual habit data and the history of how you've recorded that data. So, as an example, when somebody creates a habit in our app, they're asked a series of questions. It's not just the name of the habit and how often you want to do it and how important it is and all that stuff. We actually have a field there internally. We call it the AI descriptor field. And so, for example, if you wanted to track, let's say, intermittent fasting, and you want to know your eating window, you could create a habit to record your first meal time and record your last meal time, and then in that descriptor field, you could ask Habby, our AI. That's the word for AI integration, you could ask Habby to include in the daily report what your eating window was and if it was at a variance from the day before. And you can just use real words. You don't have to, you could ask it a different way than I do. The language model will take over and know what to do. And that's one of the greatest things about AI is from a development perspective, you don't need to code all this complicated stuff. The language model is smart enough to know what it is that you're looking for as long as you're clear. And yeah, so we've included a lot of that stuff in the AI as well.
So the platform in a way is like an apps or data integrator combined with some native functions like journaling and stuff like that, correct? So it's almost like where everything can live in one place.
Yeah, and I mean, even on the journaling thing, it's very interesting. I mean, this is version one of the journaling, which we call snippets. So journaling for a lot of people is a little challenging. It could be a cognitive load to just take time with a blank piece of paper and make it happen. And then to do it consistently, it can be a little overwhelming for people. So we created this concept of snippets like throughout the day, regardless of your habits. For example, I could put in my snippets, had a great meeting with Ken today. We recorded this great conversation on the Leaders Lab. And now that's there, it's memorialized and it's part of the feedback that Habby will get back to me, and that's going to be there forever. And the more I do that, the more snippets I give it, coupled with the habit data, coupled with the third-party data from other applications and things like that. Um, the AI starts to learn who I am, and so next version, which is coming very shortly, you'll be able to take the response that Habby gave you, and you'll be able to edit that response however you want it in tone, style, add things that weren't there, and then that will go back to Habby. Habby will learn from that and understand that and reconcile that against what we originally said. And then the next day, the next version of your habit journal combination will then be in that style. And so it'll continue to evolve and grow with you. And your style is completely different than mine. That's the greatest thing about AI. It's like this app is designed for me and the same app is designed for you. And that's kind of one of the most exciting parts of the whole AI integration.
Is it hard in your integrations to keep up with all the changes in AI? Because it really has. I mean, I use ChatGPT 3.5 for certain things because of the cost. I use Chat with integrations that we have, and ChatGPT 4 for other things. I got another one called Ask AI, which is very fast. I like that one. Um, when you're embedding that like into an app, is it just constant movement with the technology?
Yeah, I would just in the last year, especially the things that we can do now. Well, just GPTs weren't even available until 3, 4, 5 months ago, right?
Yeah.
So, um, and it's getting easier and easier. But as we have a development team and we're making the investments to do things and edge cases and make things work the right way, it's like literally the time we bring those to market, the platforms, whether it be OpenAI or any of the others, tend to catch up and already have it. So
Yeah.
it's a little dangerous to like develop your own edge cases around things because it's just the technology is moving so fast. But we've done a pretty good job of just really keeping our finger on the pulse of what's happening. We really pay attention to all of the hundreds of newsletters with all the new tools and AI, and that's been helpful. But yeah, it has been a challenge for sure.
Well, and I'm curious, and if any of this is proprietary, just say yeah, that's something we're not going to talk about or whatever. But I'm curious, just from the entrepreneur chair of going like, okay, I've got this great idea. I know it's going to work, right? Like I know AI, like this concept is like a home run in my opinion, right? But then it's people don't want to pay for stuff till it's ready to go, right? And then I look at the amount of heavy lifting that needs to be done to get it like ready to go, where you're talking about, hey, you can log on and you can connect your Aura ring and you can connect your Apple Health app and all that. How are you going to monetize this? So, like, what's the business case for this? I mean, I guess you guys will put a decent amount of money in up front. Then you'll bring on other like coaches, organizations. We talked about that a little bit, where um, and again, none of these people are affiliated with the app, at least not yet. But if you took a Tony Robbins, for example, and he said, "Hey, I like this idea. We need a way to execute the material that we're putting out there at our seminars. And we've got this, 15-page goal setting workbook for our participants. We could create some templates within your app in the tone of my voice now, right? Saying, hey, it's Tony Robbins, like, let's get going. And what did you do yesterday? And Tony Robbins quotes coming across and stuff like that. So I get all of that, but that takes a decent amount of capital and time, I got to think. And it sounds like that's where you guys are, right? Like you're just building it out right now.
Yeah, my first inclination was to search the hundreds of habit tracking apps and journaling apps that existed. And again, like I said, there wasn't one app that I could find that could be the base, because it would have been great if we could have started with something that we didn't have to build from the ground up.
Right.
But we realized that we had to. So we did our best to build the best UI that somebody could use for a habit tracking app. And I almost don't even like to use the word habit tracking, because if it's a habit, you really don't need to track it because you're already
Right.
doing it. So it's a habit transformation app. So what we did after we built it was we started putting together the next version immediately in terms of what conversational AI. So the ability, like our end goal where we're going is to need a very light interface, almost to the effect of ChatGPT, where you can just talk to it in voice, text, or image. And so we started to put together that roadmap. I kind of got lost there for a second. I forgot your original
Oh
question.
no, it's okay. I was just kind of saying, like, in terms of building it and then monetizing it, I guess,
Oh,
because I've never
yeah,
had to
yeah.
do something like that where I've owned some businesses, but never where I've created a product that you then have to go out and monetize. And what is that like? And it sounds like you said, there wasn't a clear roadmap at the beginning. It was just like
Right.
passion. And what are you finding that to be like? And what is that process like? Do you got to bring in major investors? Do you got to get some of these big names like a Tony or like a Brendan Burchard, or like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Oh, good point. Thank you for clarifying
Oh,
that.
no
Yeah.
problem.
So bottom line is, in addition to having AI that's part of the app, that's a differentiator between our product and a lot of the ones out there. The next biggest differentiator is the fact that it was designed with affiliate marketing in general, whether that be a Tony Robbins or Brendan Bouchard, or it is a software company that's in the personal development space where their user base would want a product like ours, and our user base would want a product like theirs, or an integration. Whether it's either one of those, the channel opportunity for us to distribute this app is really how we built it. So we took a lot of time on the back end to build the attribution of how people learned about us. If you download the app, for example, through Men and Women of Discomfort, which is one of our current clients, they have their own landing page. And so when you download the app, you will get their templates. It's still our app. It's a co-branded app at that point. And all of the components are there that you would get if you just went to the App Store and downloaded it. But you also get Dane Sanders, who runs that program. You get his perspective on it. You get his templates. And so this isn't just for um, other synergistic software companies or for coaches or whatnot. We're actually taking a look at enterprise and in more medium-sized businesses, where habits don't just play in the personal life, but they also play in the life of an employee. And so customer service representatives, sales representatives, there's habits that they can have during work and off work that will help them in their in their endeavors. And so we're actually looking at those as channels as well, where we would approach a company and say, look, how many people do you have in your sales department? What are the things that you want them to do? Let's configure the app to be proprietary for you, but also your employees can use this on a personal level as well. And so in some cases, companies are willing to subsidize and pay the entire licensing fee for those, currently at $10 per month per user. We expect that to go up with more and more value that we bring. And other times they'll subsidize a portion of it and then leave it up to the employee. Sometimes they'll reward certain employees with the licensing based on their performance. There's a lot of different things there. So but primarily speaking, this is a channel play. We estimate that 80 80% of the people that use our app will have come to us through some channel, whether it be a coach, an entrepreneur, an organization, or a synergistic software company.
Sure. So you guys just can almost white label it. You can co-brand it. You can do it with companies. You could do it with coaches. Could a small coach, like somebody with 20 clients or something, still live
Yeah,
on the platform?
and I just know it's all co-branding, and we don't really white label. So we're not offering the app. You would only download the app as habit driven in the store.
Right.
How that link is that you got to the store will dictate what
Yeah.
content you
Yeah.
have in it. But it's habit driven no matter what.
Right.
We the splash screen that you get when you download it will be branded a little bit co-branded, but other than that, it's the same app. What was your
Oh,
second?
and then what about like small to like, what about people who just have coaching business? They got 20
Yeah,
clients, 30 clients. Or what level does it take for someone to be able to do a co-brand?
actually, that is maybe our sweet spot. So we don't know yet. The thing that's interesting there is you could imagine as a user of the app, if I were to opt into sharing my data, it would be an opt-in only with my coach, and then the coach could have an interface where they could see your data so that when you're meeting, you can have a real meeting about what happened. And so that's the biggest part. We're at first we called Habby a AI coach, and then we backed that up and said, you know what, it's really a companion because
Hmm.
the personal coach is still going to provide a significant level of value. So this is a tool to collect data. So in that realm, the idea of coaches that had 5 to 50 clients that they see, on a monthly basis, this is an amazing tool to not only help them keep their clients because they have a differentiator that they're using this app and their clients benefit from it, but also a great way to like quickly see what's happened and transpired with that user before they meet and before they have their discussions. So I think that's a big channel. Somebody like Tony Robbins, as an example, clearly isn't going to look over tens of thousands of people's information and
Sure.
speak with them one on one. So it's a different market, and yeah, we're very excited about.
Sure, but he's got hundreds of individual one-on-one coaches that might
Right.
go in and say, "Okay, I'll review the habit tracker. I'll go look at 10 minutes worth of date, 5 minutes even before I get on the call, just to see like, okay, Mike did all of his workouts this week. Looks like he ate right. He drank water. He, whatever, filed his taxes, whatever's on there, right?
Right.
Um, okay, so switching gears a little bit, and you probably read and you're a personal development guy. You're a guy that with a has developed a lot of habits on his own. I've heard a lot of different data behind this. How long does it take to form a habit? Is it 30 days? I've heard 30 days. I've heard 90 days. I think it kind of depends, but like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts is it really depends on the habit and where you are in relation to that habit.
Yeah.
And I don't subscribe to any of the it's X amount of days. It's
Right.
about repetition, and a lot of challenges that people have is they try to make habits way too complex. And as most people know that have done some investigation, you need to start somewhere. It's the analogy of like if somebody lets all the dishes in the sink just pile up to the point where it's so big it can get daunting, and then there's more and more dishes get in the sink until you got to do something because somebody's coming over or whatnot. But usually, if you say, you know what, I'm just going to clean 3 dishes, like I'll just do 3 right now. The next thing you know, your hands are wet. You're in there. If you're cleaning them, they all end up getting cleaned immediately.
Sure.
So it's the same thing with rather than saying I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to like gain all this muscle and I'm going to, you set these huge lofty goals and it's just hard to get your head out the door. And so sometimes just putting your shoes on and saying today that's what I'm going to do. That's the habit I'm going to create. I'm going to start with a really small habit, get that underway, and then maybe I'll drive to the gym, and then I'll get to the gym. But I'm not going to go inside. My habit is just to get from the house to the gym, and then the next day it's like okay, I'm going to go in the gym. I'm going to get on the treadmill for 5 minutes, and then eventually things start to click. But it's not about the quality. It's about the quantity, as we've learned, and a lot of people reported on that. So
Yeah, I think you've got to care about it. I mean, which sounds like self-explanatory, but if you're doing it to go through the motions,
Yeah.
because you think you should, or, whatever. It's going to fade. I don't care if you do it 47 days in a row. Like, if you still don't
Right.
care about it, you'll stop. Um, yeah, you're reminding me when I was doing a lot of running. I noticed when I would make excuses would be right before I was supposed to go normally, right? That's anybody. Like your
Right.
intentions are always like pure and really solid when you don't have to do it, like the night before.
Right.
Like I'm getting it done tomorrow or next week or whatever. So what I started doing is I look at what are all my barriers, and you could do this with anything, right? I'm just going to use running as an example, but it'd be like, what are my barriers? What are the reasons that because my brain is looking for resistance. It's actually looking for support to not do it.
Yeah.
So if my AirPods aren't charged, or I can't find my shoes, or my running shorts aren't laundered, or like any of that, and so I got in the habit the night before of shoes laid out,
Yeah.
AirPods charged, laying on top, whatever, phone charged, like everything done, waiting. And then my own self pride or ego or whatever could not walk by in the morning a fully set up situation and not
No
at least get out the
excuses.
door. Right. I'd be
Yeah.
like, well, I got to go. It's just all right here. There's no, I just took all the excuses away. And you can do that with anything. You can do that with client meetings. You can do that with, you know, anything in life, right? It's usually the preparation before that's going to make the habit repeat.
I agree. Prepping the environment, as James Clear calls it, and it's something I do all the time. So one of my cornerstone habit is tracking my habits. That's
Yeah,
my cornerstone habits because it brings awareness. It brings mindfulness. It creates accountability and it creates momentum once you're on a roll. It can be hard to get started sometimes if you have too many that you're trying to do. But the second habit I think is the most important is planning the next day, the day before. And I've gotten really good at that. And really time blocking, the important items first. And no matter what. It's like I think Tom Bilyeu is the one that said, like, we all have to-do lists one way or another. Everybody says they don't want a to-do list, they got to put it in your calendar and all that stuff. That's right. But the reality is you can have a to-do list, and if it's just super long and you're just like searching for the thing to do, you're probably going to do the thing that doesn't need to get done the most.
yeah,
You're going to do something. I guess it's better than doing nothing and watching TV. However, you can only do one at a time, and
right.
so ordering and prioritizing and doing it the day before, so you don't really have any. The top three things are the top three things, and you don't do the third thing first and then go to the first thing. You do the first thing, the second thing, the third thing. And if you set that the night before, there's like less ambiguity and it's just very clear cut. And I find that
Totally.
I stay on track that way.
I had two coaching calls this morning with people I own a recruiting company and they're recruiting agency owners. We were talking about this exact subject, and in fact, I was even calendar sharing and going through the exact same concept. So, and to me, what it is in advance. Like if you already look to mid-May for me or something, you're going to see the framework already of what the week of whatever middle of May, May 18th, let's just say the framework will already be there, meaning I get up, I work out, I do whatever, I have a team meeting, that framework will be there. Then the weekend before, so Saturday, Sunday, when I'm not stressed, when I'm not overwhelmed, when I'm not taking calls, I look at that framework because now it's already changed because we're coming up on the week. Now I've actually got booked meetings in there and some stuff needs to move around a little bit. Then it's prioritizing the week to me, and then it's prioritizing the day, right? So now the day is what happened today. My day always ends with auditing the day that just happened and setting up the next day. And to the degree that you can be specific in those blocks. So, like if you have a 1 hour block that says business development, that could also mean Amazon delivery, pet the,
Right.
you know, pet the dog. But if it said business development 20 phone calls,
Yep.
that's I got to do 20. If I want to pet the dog, I got to slide it in there somehow because I've got to get my 20 because that. So I found that the more shorter time blocks and more specific action that I can do, then the better, a better outcome it's going to be. And I also look at it like once you set it up, because you're doing it, it's the same theory, what we're talking about right now. And it's probably why you got on it. We're basically doing the same thing as setting out the running shoes the night before. Because a lot of people that are hearing that is like, that's a good idea. I should do that. If you start doing that with everything,
Right.
And there's so many entrepreneurs that listen to this, and that is the definition of being your own boss is not winging it. Right? It's actually being your own boss. It's being disciplined. It's doing more with less. And I think that, you know, those that want to that are running $1 million company, that want to run $10 million company, it's not, you're not going to add to IQ points to get there. You're going to
Right.
add to your personal capacity and effectiveness. And I think these tips are really really good. And this app is habit driven app is really really cool, and going to help people on their journey for getting there.
Yeah, thank you. I do too. I'm super excited about the future. One thing that we're doing right now is we kind of have positioned. We're looking for somebody who wants to be the face of the brand. I have, as an entrepreneur, I have a lot of different businesses that I'm running right now, and I am in search of right now that person. That person would literally have the title CEO, and I would be there to support. But we're looking for somebody to really full time dedicate to taking this to the next level alongside of our existing team. And I think it's an amazing opportunity, especially for somebody who's already in the personal development space, who already has a successful practice. Maybe they're lacking a product, maybe they're a coach that
Right.
has been super successful and have a team of coaches. But the more and more that we've been digging in and looking for this person, the conversations that I've had with people has been amazing. And everybody who's kind of looked at what we have has continued to use the product, which has been awesome. We haven't even really marketed it. We have almost 1,000 people actively using the app on a regular basis, and we are super excited to see that a lot of these types of apps typically have a big drop off. Like people get excited, just like January 1st, I'm going to go do my New Year's resolutions and I'm going to
Sure.
start going to the gym. And then by February, it's done. We're not seeing that as much. And I think as we continue to add additional features through AI and make it even more conversational and really provide insights and guidance that people will see. And they realize, like, if I invest my time into putting the information into the app will come back with real tangible things that are valuable to me. I think it'll be much more sticky than some of the other products on the market. And that is important to keeping people on track.
Oh yeah. If there's an app that could spit out to me, hey Ken, on nights where you don't score a sleep score of over 80%, you are 75% less likely to get your workouts done the next day. I'll be like, wow, okay. Sleep is important. I've heard it before. I know that intellectually, but this is proof. Like these are my actual activities. This is my actual, way that I'm functioning day to day. So I think that's huge. Well, I love what you're bringing to market. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. I think it's great. And Mike, we'll put all of your contact information too in our show notes, of course. And if you'd like to reach out to Mike to learn more about the app, if you're interested in his leadership team and what he's trying to build there, and maybe even sliding into that, we got a lot of coaches in our network and stuff too. So who knows? Maybe there's
That's
some
great.
partnership opportunities there as well.
Thanks, Ken. I really appreciate you having me, and I can't wait to give some more updates as we continue to make more progress.
Sounds cool. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Take care.